SwoleBenji here. Today I wanted to talk to you about dungeon loot, how dungeon loot works, how items appear in your dungeon loot chests, just the whole mechanics behind dungeon loot. Before we get started with the video, I want to share results on an experiment I've done. What I've been doing is burning a tier 5 map every day right as soon as the server comes up to see that if dungeon loot is better, if you're like one of the first ones to run into a dungeon and open chests, because as the server is down for maintenance, maybe the black market is still going, and you might be entitled to more loot that way if you're one of the first ones on the server opening chests. And after 100 days of testing, I can conclude that that is not the case. The loot that you receive if you are like one of the first ones into the server upon restart, it's actually slightly lower performing than if you play during off hours. So should you burn maps and do dungeons right when the server restarts? Not really. Anyway, let's get started and talk about how your dungeon loot gets into chests. Alright, so the game has a mechanic called the black market. The black market is found in Caerleon. The way black market items work is an NPC will buy items from you for a price that continues to scale upward. So the way it works is you take an item like say a crossbow, and let's say the average selling price that most players will buy the crossbow for is 1,000 silver. So what you do is you go to the black market, and you'll notice that no one's selling the crossbow to the black market because the black market is only buying crossbows for 800 silver. But over time, the black market will slowly offer more and more silver to to buy the crossbow from you. And when the black market does buy a crossbow off a player, it then gets put back into the game world into a chest. So every time you open a chest, you are getting loot that someone has sold to the black market. Not counting the runes or the silver bags, those are generated by the game and not the black market. So currently with the mobile release, that means there are a ton of players all doing dungeons, which means that the black market has less loot to give in those chests. Therefore, everyone doing dungeons currently is receiving less loot than normal. This happens every major patch, this happens every major game update, or when there's a spike in the population, but it will average out and it will return to normal eventually. Just hang in there and keep doing those dungeons. So when does the chest receive the items? And I can safely speculate on that. I'm not 100% certain, but here's what's happened, okay? So one time I had killed a boss, and when you kill the boss, the chest unlocks, it makes that shimmery noise, right? So I ran over, I looted it, and I got some gear, and then the server crashed. And then when the server came back up, I was back in the same room. The chest had not been looted. The boss was dead. So I went and looted the chest, and lo and behold, I got the same exact loot, alright? Now, in another separate instance, I was in the boss room, I killed the boss, I looted the chest and got the loot, the server crashed. Same thing like that happened last time. But when the server came back up, the boss was alive. So I killed the boss again, and I looted the chest, but this time the loot inside the chest was different. So I can speculate with pretty much certainty that as soon as the boss dies and you hear that chest unlock noise, that like shimmery noise, that is when the chest receives loot from the black market, alright? So for those of you thinking that like skipping chests so you get a bigger reward at the end or anything like that is how the game works, it is not. So you shouldn't do that. Don't skip green chests. Those things can be worth a lot. Now, what about group dungeon chests? Alright, some people think that people without premium should not open a group dungeon chest because it will ruin the loot for everyone. That is not the case. Like I said earlier, the loot is allocated when the boss dies, alright? It doesn't matter if the person without premium killed the boss in a party with people with premium. As long as one person has premium in the party, then the loot inside is premiumed, but the way loot allocation works is a little bit different in group dungeons, alright? So if everyone has premium, then everyone gets a dice roll essentially for the loot, the total loot. Like say there's 10 items, right? The way it works, like it's kind of like a coin flip or a dice roll. Okay, let's say there's 2 players in a group dungeon, and 10 items are allocated to the chest. So not counting runes or silver bags, just actual gear pieces and items. All right. So both players with premium. Player 1 gets a coin flip. He gets heads, so he gets to yoink 1 item out of the pool of 10. Player 2, flips tails. He doesn't get any, grabs for that coin flip. Player 3 flips heads again, so he gets a second item. So what this means essentially is that because that's the way loot is divvied up, right? Sometimes if you fail every dice roll or every coin flip, one person in the party might get 1 or 2 items, and then the other player gets like 8 items, and it seems kind of unfair. It has nothing to do with the value of the loot that you're rolling for either. And now at the same time, someone without premium in a group dungeon with someone with premium, the person with premium basically gets twice as many coin flips or dice rolls. So they have, double the chances of getting loot. If it's just, 1 premium and 1 non-premium. So if you're wondering how loot is divvied up in group dungeons, that's how it is. If you kill a boss and you're the only one in there, or everyone in there has non-premium, then it will only give the non-premium amount of loot, alright? Which is still pretty good for group dungeons. So don't think that if you're doing group dungeons, you don't have to invite someone to your group only if they have premium. That's silly. That's not how the game works at all. I also get asked a lot, what is the best time of day to do dungeons? And honestly, for me, I believe if you look at the bottom right corner, you can see the time, the server time in UTC. I believe that 4 a.m. UTC time is by far the best and most profitable time to run dungeons. I have ran so many dungeons, thousands and thousands and thousands, and I log what times that I do them, and I try different things, and I find that this time, for me personally, I get the most loot. There's the least amount of players online, and the black market has had plenty of time to rise in price, and people on the black market, they don't have to be actively playing to sell to the black market. They can put a sell order in, and whenever a certain item reaches a silver threshold, it automatically sells it to the market, and then it gets placed into the pool of items, which will be spread to chests. And also at that time of day, there's less people doing Avalonian roads, less people doing Avalonian raids, less people doing really high-end PvE content, which a lot of those chests will take a lot of loot. Like if you went into a tier 8 static Avalonian road dungeon, you're going to get 650% the normal amount of loot that you would get in a tier 5 yellow zone dungeon, right? So what that means is it's like opening like 8 chests at once, essentially, in terms of your loot. But also, it also considers your jackpot amount too of rolling for higher tier loot, right? Now also, at the same time, people have been lying in the comments. I'm running out of time in this video, so I'm going to be quick. Alright, if you're running tier 5s, the best equipment you can possibly get from a chest is 7.3, alright? You can get tier 8 runes, relics, and souls, which are great, but you can't find tier 8 equipment in a tier 5 yellow zone. So if anyone says that, oh, I just found tier 8, they're lying, okay? Now, this is why people do argue that tier 6s are better, because you can get tier 8 loot, but not a lot of tier 8 loot gets sold to the black market. And also, tier 8 loot takes longer to sell in the market. Look, I'm not trying to convince everyone to do yellow zone dungeons. I just think that they're more efficient based on what I've done in my videos. Anyway, that's how loot works in dungeons, alright? So, a lot of people, like I said, they're complaining because, the game has quadrupled the amount of players right now, okay? And literally everyone's starting new characters are advised to do dungeons. That means dungeon chests are getting looted like crazy. Like, the loot is very thin at the moment, but still, even with that in mind, it is still more profitable than gathering, and how else are you going to fame up your character, right? Anyway, I'm SwoleBenji, thanks for watching. As always, be a bro and stay swole. Make sure you return your shopping carts, and I'll see you in the next one. If you like the video, click like, alright? If you click like on the video, it absolutely helps the video. And if you leave a comment, that is an algorithm combo. And I read every comment, okay? I'm not that big of a YouTuber that I don't read your comments, alright? I just don't have time to respond. Anyway, thanks, bye. Oops, didn't time the voiceover properly, so we're going to go over donations. Heaven with $50 says, love your videos, keep it up, please. Don't care what game you play, your personality is very enjoyable. Thank you for the content. Thank you, Heaven, for the 50. Kisstank with $80 says, SBI Awareness Fund and some pie. He's donated $100 so far. Thank you, Kisstank. Genesis with $10 says, hey, Benji, good job fighting the losers. It's actually sad that the devs don't stand about the community being hateful towards you. Really goes to show that these guys are all in bed together and really always use you as a punching bag. Get some pizza. I bought some tindies. Thank you very much, Genesis, and thank you to everyone that's donated. Take care, lads.